The movie tells the true story of Gary Hart, who in 1987 was the clear and away frontrunner for the Democratic nomination and for the presidency, was leading in all the polls, was one of the most admired figures in America. And all of that, his campaign unraveled in the space of 5 days over a sex scandal, a scandal about him being seen with a woman who wasn't his wife, that was really the first of its kind in American politics, the first of the tabloid era that came to political coverage, and happened as a result of something that I think is even quite extraordinary today that people don't remember, which is surveillance, a stakeout done by a newspaper, the Miami Herald, at the home of a presidential candidate. And Hart really disappeared from public life, and the story was largely forgotten. But the story, what we depict in the film, the story that it tells, is the story of really this moment in American politics when the worlds of politics and entertainment collided, when the traditional political media and the entertainment media collided, and where we began down a path in our media coverage and our campaigning that leads us, I think, to the politics we have today. People had always told Jay and I, people don't want to hear about politicians. They don't want to hear about older politicians, and you should write it about a younger reporter, and you should fictionalize it and make it a fictional story. And we had tried to take a lot of that advice. We were new to doing this. But the deeper we got into it, especially after writing the book, we had started to talk about, telling a truer story. I had always wanted to tell a truer story. And then Jason came along and said, "You guys have done great work, but you need to tell the real story. This is an important moment in American politics. We need to tell people this story. This can be fascinating." And here was this, genius filmmaker saying, you can do this. We can do this together. And that was, I can't tell you how gratifying that was. I mean, somebody who got it, who understood why it mattered, and wanted to tell it exactly the way that I had told it in the book. And the three of us had a remarkable collaboration. You just couldn't be any better. Hugh is kind of a remarkable guy. He's incredibly bright. He's incredibly kind. Even off screen, at first I thought, well, it's got to be put on. Nobody's that nice. I'd heard he was that nice, but he really is. He brings us scratch-off tickets, and he pops down between scenes and talks to you all the time. And he's telling me something. He's just read or asking about my kids. He's a very real person, and I don't think that's incidental to the film because, while Hart is a reserved character and a sort of cerebral character, there is this kind of essential decency that Hugh conveys that I think makes the character richer. It's why he's just such a great actor. He can just say things with his face that other people can't. First and foremost, we wanted to tell an incredibly gripping story in a real way and a funny way and a creative way that will engross people and make them think and make them empathize with characters. So I think we've all shared the idea that we're not making a message movie. We want people to take away from it what they will. And I think all of us could have a pretty good argument about what the message ought to be at the end of the day, because it's a complicated story with a lot of people doing the best they can under difficult circumstances. For me, the main message of the Gary Hart story has never been he was right, they were wrong, he should have been president, he was stupid, whatever. It's never been a judgment on anybody's motivations or actions. I've always felt that the point is that actions have consequences, both for politicians and for the media. And this is something I've said, to my colleagues, that we need to understand that this isn't a game, that you may have good reasons, you may have bad reasons, but what we do ricochets from that moment to another moment, reverberates through the years and through the decades, changes the course of the country, changes the course of history. Everything we do has consequences, and we have to take responsibility for them. And I think this, to the extent that there's a universal message in this film, which is primarily a great story and a funny story and a moving story. The idea is that we all have to take responsibility for our decisions.